The Colorado Avalanche, first round exit to the Nashville Predators in the playoffs last year. I think a lot of people were happy to see them in the playoffs. I think they're a team that many people like. When I think Colorado Avalanche, I can't help but think back to when I was a kid, Peter Forsberg and Joe Sakic. The big names.
Mm,
I've always kind of seen them that way, and it's always felt like since those guys left, they were in like this never-ending rebuild. Despite getting guys like Matt Duchene and McKinnon through the draft, I don't know. I feel like they never were able to really get out of that the dark ages, following the all the success they had. So they have not been one of the elite teams for a very long time now. And what do you think? Do
no,
you think that the tides are going to turn a little bit for them?
I still don't. I still don't believe they have the right pieces. They have some,
Hmm.
um, but focusing on a division, they really do not even come close to contending with some of these heavyweights like Nashville and Winnipeg. I'm sorry, but
No, of
Nathan
course.
McKinnon, they could basically be called the Colorado Nathan McKinnons because personally, that's what it felt like last year. He
He
he took
carried
his
the team.
backpack, smashed everyone inside his backpack, and put the backpack straps on him,
Man,
and went, "Come
97
on,
points,
guys,
huh?
let's go. I'll take you
97
there."
points for the guy. That's impressive.
I felt like he was due for a good year. That's why I drafted him last year, kind of late in the later rounds.
Yeah.
But I really just don't think he has the support to get them back to the um, playoffs again this year. If you look at
Really?
what happened in the last 4 games or 3 games between St. Louis and Colorado last year,
Hmm.
St. Louis was in the driver's seat and they completely fucked it up, which does not happen a lot. Teams don't, um, you know, uh, screw things up with that little time left in the season. Um,
I blame it on the goaltending though. St. Louis had
on
rough goaltending.
Well, that might be a big part of it. I do agree with you there. I also do believe Colorado might have just been on a roll at the time. They were heating up. They even actually, I think they took Nashville to 6 games.
Hmm.
So it kind of carried over into the playoffs. They
Yeah,
won a couple games.
yeah. I
Um,
remember being pretty surprised that they managed to pull off a couple
yeah,
a couple wins there. I was
yeah.
expecting a 4 game sweep for sure.
I had them on NHL.com as swept by the Nashville Predators as well. That's just what I thought. I was surprised to see them win 2 games, even 1 game. Um, but anyways, moving on to 2019,
Yeah,
do you see them doing the same thing? Do you see them moving up in the division? Do you see them falling?
I look. I mean, I think I've been very consistent with my preview so far for teams. I hope that's not just me being closed-minded, but I kind of just see a lot of these teams staying kind of roughly where they are
Mm-hmm.
within their divisions. I think more than any other year in the past, decade or so, I find the league is not. Although the speed of the game has changed and that you would expect every team can win on any given night,
Mm-hmm.
I find this year more than others. It's kind of like you got the the, the front loading teams, or the teams that are the big powerhouses are going to be at the top. The shit teams are going to stay shit, and the average teams are going to stay average. So
Yeah.
I don't think that much is going to change. However, I think I'm a little bit more positive on their offense than you are, just in terms of production. I do think that the Landeskog, Renton line with McKinnon, that they started kind of becoming more and more impressive as the season went on. So yeah, McKinnon was carrying a lot of the load, but I think that those two guys were starting to pick up some of the slack as well. And I think they were complementing each other very well. And I mean, they finished top 10 in special teams last year. They finished fourth actually in the PK, which is very good for a team that wants to make a playoff push. to be able to rely on their special teams. So I don't know. I think they're going to stay the same. I think they're going to be in that wild card battle pretty much up until the end, similarly to last year.
Well, I'm gonna be a little bit different here. I'm gonna say they actually fall. Um, I agree with you in the sense that Landeskog, McKinnon, and Rantanen are a very good line. They have a lot of good chemistry. Um, just comparing it to some other the heavyweight teams, like I said, they don't have some pieces in place to help that first line um, in terms of coming at you in waves.
Hmm.
If you look at even Winnipeg, they have their top line, but then they have their second line and even third line could do damage to you.
Yeah.
I'm looking at Colorado here, and I'm going Kerfoot, Jost, and Andrighetto. I honestly don't think they have enough depth to get past some of the teams in their division and some of the other teams in the other divisions. They have a great first line. They have some really good core D that they got. I just don't feel like they got. And I guess you kind of saw in the playoffs. They kind of Nashville basically shut down. Well, the games that they did win against Colorado, they just shut down the first line.
Yeah, and I mean
You know,
that's all you really have to do, especially looking at,
yeah,
like you said, the depth of their their bottom six, even man, their bottom nine. You could
yeah.
consider it a bottom nine and a top three.
So
That's how I think, you know, how far apart they are from an
So
elite
yeah,
team.
you have them kind of being in the middle of the pack in their division. I I don't see it. I think they're going to drop. I whether it's by one spot and St. Louis makes the playoffs this year, fine. I just don't see them making the
Well,
postseason.
the reason I see them staying the same, is because, you know, if you look at the Pacific, I think again that LA is going to slip, and I think it's just going to open up the two wildcard spots, and that, you know, maybe both Colorado, St. Louis get through. It depends a
Okay.
little bit on Dallas as well. I think Dallas is going to have a
Yeah.
better year, but there are so many factors that kind of go into it that it's kind of tough to tell. Something I will say though about Colorado is that I do think that with Bernier leaving, you know, and getting Grubauer as your backup to Varlamov, I think on the back end they're going to be a little bit stronger.
Okay.
They do lose Blake Como. They lose Andrew Hammond, who was one of I think their third goalie.
Mm-hmm.
And they lost Nail Yakupov, who didn't really do much for them. Like, he
No.
wasn't really a
No.
big name as much as you'd expect. And then they picked up Ian Cole on D, Matt Calvert, Philip Grubauer as their backup. Um, so I don't know. I think they kind of, because that's the thing. I don't think they got much worse than how they were last year. And even though there aren't any big names, they didn't have any big names last year, and they still made the playoffs.
Okay. All right. Moving on to players. I
You
know
go.
we just spent about 5 minutes on players, but that was more in their team aspect. Now we're going into player stats.
Hmm.
So, big Nate Mack, 97 points in 74 games. I was crushed when he got injured for a couple weeks at the end of the year there. Missed 8 games. 100% he plays those 8 games. He's over 100 points,
Yeah, for sure,
um,
for sure.
which is a career year for McKinnon. Good on him. Good job. Then it bounces down to Rantanen, who is a line mate of McKinnon. Certainly benefited from playing together. Um,
Yeah, and then Landeskog was definitely a big part of that.
mhm.
However, I feel like last year were they always together. I feel like towards the end of the
Those three,
season, towards the end of
I
or
thought I thought they were
midway through the year, I think at one point they were split up because I remember
okay.
McKinnon was getting all the points and Landeskog wasn't, and I had him in fantasy. But
Okay,
Tyson Berry, man, 57 points in 68 games. If he
good
plays all
job.
82, maybe almost a 20 goal score from the back.
Hmm.
And they did lose
Um,
Duchesne midway through the year. He played
they did.
14 games with them. he could have been a big piece of that offense, of that secondary
Yeah.
scoring, and he was just traded away. So that's kind of why their offense took a hit, but they still managed to make the playoffs. So I don't know, man. I'm not writing them off completely for this upcoming year, but yeah, you're going to need to see just more from the rest of that squad.
Okay. Make it or break it, bro.
You go first this time. You go first.
Um, I think it's gonna come down. I'm gonna group them together, just like in the um, Chicago um, series. I'm going with both their goalies. They're both gonna be uh, on the good end. I'm gonna have no bad guys this series or this episode.
Hmm.
For me, it's gonna be a tandem between Grubauer and Varlamov. If they can almost do kind of like what the Islanders did a couple years ago with Halak and Grice, and they made the playoffs. In both having both goalies start, 40 games, you flip flop back and forth every game, or you just ride the hot guy. I believe between the two of them, they're going to be the determining factor if they get to the playoffs or not. McKinnon, Rantanen, Landeskog, Barry, they can score as many goals as they want, but sooner or later, those guys aren't going to score in a game, and it's going to be up to your goaltenders to maybe steal one or two for you. So,
Hmm.
for me, it's the goalies.
Okay. I'm kind of with you on that. I do kind of expect them to hold the fort down, and to be able to steal them some games. Standout player, man. I I think it's more of the standout line. I think the Nathan McKinnon line, that I think they're gonna kind of ride the hot hand there from last year, and I think they're gonna roll into this year with more momentum, and that they're gonna be all three of them, man. That they're gonna have kind of like a blowout year. And again, I do think that the three of them together will shoulder most of the load. And I think that them alone will be the reason why they're still in that wild card battle towards the end of the year. I know you can't do it all just with offense. If their goalies do perform well, you foresee, then that top line can really do some damage. And yeah, if they can keep up the hot special teams as well, be in the top 10 in the power play again, could be good. Could be a good year for them.
All
I don't
right.
know, man. It's always hard to tell, but I'd like to see Colorado come back to the level where they once were.
Any other stats you want to bring up? Any guys you want to talk about? Any?
Uh, Not really, man. I don't think that the roster's changed all that much. I think that they're very similar to how they were last year.
Okay. Okay then. Well, I'm going to sign off. One last thing. Our
Oh,
sponsors.
for fuck's sakes!
Would like to thank IKEA.
Why?
Recently just moved into a home, and I haven't built shit because their instructions are garbage. So if you've bought a home or are moving, don't go to IKEA.
Okay, dude, are they our sponsor, or are you reverse sponsoring them? Like, I don't understand the
I don't even
dynamics of
know,
this whole thing.
but they're garb.
Okay, well, fuck. Shout out to IKEA for being so garbage. Thanks, sponsors. What a mess.
Bye.